Um, I know people have been kind of critical saying, where's HISD? Why aren't you feeding kids? Well, I've been feeding families. I haven't been feeding children. I've been working with the Houston Food Bank, using our resources as well as their resources. You know, what people don't understand about Houston is not Houston Public Schools. We're an ISD. There's about 7 or 8 or 9 ISDs who have Houston addresses. So all around us, everybody's been serving Houston. Around me, people have been serving their ISD, which is in Houston. And the city of Houston opened up their summer feeding program. So they had 50 sites for Parks and Recs. Well, I'm like, wait a minute, there's only so much any of us could do. So I decided to leverage my resources and join the Houston Food Bank and I gave them 14 refrigerated trucks and 14 drivers and 14 warehousemen to help them do family distribution, to do meal package distributions. So that worked out fine and we were doing great. And then all of a sudden we had a scare. So my staff and I, we withdrew and said, wait a minute, for food safety, let's look at what we're doing. And what we found out in all of this was that in order for social distance to maintain, we knew how to handle food safely. We do it every day, gloves and hats and the whole 9 yards, but we never had to deal with volunteers.
Okay.
And what we found out is because everybody wanted to help and they would get on the site and just wanting to help and they're running around. You got like, wait, no, you can't do this. No, where's your gloves? Where's your mask? So we said, well, wait a minute. So when we had that scare, we said, wait a minute, let's just stop, regroup, think about what we're doing. The Houston Food Bank and HISD has a good relationship. We work in coordination with the city as well in coordination with the state. So we said, all right, we know what to do. So we took that week to reorganize. We set up, I sent you some photos. We set up an assembly and where the refrigerated trucks are, where the docks are and everything. So we did 2,500 meals on Friday. We put them on the trucks this morning. So we're at right now, as we speak, there's 2 sites we're serving. And and then we'll go to 2 more sites. So we used what we did in order to serve our children best was to serve their families. Because I keep telling people, there are food insecure households that send us hungry children, not the other way around.
Right, exactly.
Think about ways that we could put groceries, for lack of a better term, on the shelves of these households. Because I was talking to the police department, they said, you know what, Ms. Wiggins, I really want to thank you. I said, why? She said, because if these people didn't have food in their homes, the incident of crime going out and the desperateness of some families, and Becky, we're really blessed that as a middle-class person, I can sit here and I said, I can run to the grocery store and stand in line and hoard food and do all the things. And some people don't have that's an option. And particularly when you look at how many people have been laid off in terms of the hospitality industry, in terms of some of these other industries. And I'm going like, oh, wait a minute. Even I sent my hairdresser a check the other day because, that's usually I got a hat on. but her business is gone. So, I encourage people, think about some of your service employees, your nails and whatever. These people don't have a living now.
Yeah.
And so I hope that what we're trying to do with feeding families are going to, help ease some of the stress that's on our city. And fortunately, here in Harris County, which is where Houston is located, we haven't had the worst yet.
And so I have a question for you. I mean, when you moved to Houston a couple of years ago, you were almost immediately hit with Hurricane Harvey.
What is it? Am I like Typhoid Mary?
But I wonder, is there anything that you learned from that experience that you guys are implementing now?
Yeah. What we learned, just what we did when we asked, well, wait, volunteers, let us do this. So what's happened is now with the Houston Food Bank and HISD, I said, thank you guys, but let us in FoodService do this because we know how to do it. We know how to control it. And our employees know how to handle the situation. So that's what we did learn. And that's what happened in Harvey. We had to chase the volunteers away. Now, wait a minute, you guys, stand outside on the driveway because people just want to help. And sometimes it's too much help is not what you need. So, we staffed it just like it's a job, just like we're getting ready to feed some kids, just like we're getting ready to do run a product. And so it's under better control. And then as we think about it, we are doing things too to keep our employees safe. Like when they come in, we're taking temperatures, we're doing stuff, things that we would do anyway when we put meals together for kids. So hopefully, and then prayerfully too, we hope that we're going to be able to do this for a long time. And then the state of Texas, and the other thing that's happening is that, and some of my colleagues around the country has got to think about it. If there is no school, and I don't think there's going to be, what are we going to do with all that food that's in our freezers? So at some point, we're going to have no matter, it's just a real massive problem for me, because I have 280 schools. So I got 280 freezers out there with food in it. But even a district with 10 schools, what are you going to do with that food in the freezer? There's no sense of just maintaining it on the shelf when you've got more food coming. So I talked to the Texas Department of Agriculture. I had 16 truckloads of commodities on their way to Houston. Oh, wow. So I talked to a TDA, and really they have been so helpful and so willing to make adjustments. And I said, can I take these school meal commodities, transfer the title to the food bank so that we can package, so take it from school meals and transfer it to the food bank so it could go into TFAP, temporary emergency food, and we can put it in meal bags, meal packages to serve families. So, I said, the same thing's going to happen with my food. That food is paid for. And so, well, no, I'm going to keep it. Well, no, you're keeping old food. So why aren't you considering going in and pulling out your commodities and pulling out things that you can and give them to the local food bank? The local food bank has become my best partner, them in the city. I really appreciate what's happening here in Houston. And again, like I said, I'm not like a county food service system. I got ISDs. I got 7. You're from Texas. I got all these ISDs that are inside of Houston. And so, I got a very specific group. But what we're finding out, what we're doing with these family food packages, working with the food bank, is I'm allowing the food bank now to take their trucks down to Galveston, to take their trucks to other counties where services are needed, because HISD's refrigerated trucks are in Houston and serving areas in Houston. So we've become great partners. And then the city is leveraging the summer feeding sites. So they have 50 sites. If I had did my schools, I was going to only open up 40. So now, and they would have been in competition with the rec department. So what we're having here is that we're still feeding the kids under reimbursable programs. And what I'm doing is I'm just using the resources, HISD, to ensure that we have a greater coverage, because some of these places I had never heard of, like Chambers, and you have to forgive me, Chambers County and these different Benzozia, and I don't know, but gosh, they have a need. And so the food bank says, okay, HISD, take care of Houston. And that's what we've been doing. And they also have a summer feeding program. So if you would talk to us, I think we got a model that that's better served kids. And it's the partnership between the food bank, the school system, the city, and the Department of Agriculture here in Texas. I think, I just can't tell you how cooperative they've been, and how, it's okay, let's do what we got to do. But we still have accountability for the food. I still have to account for the food, the agricultural product. So, but I got 16 trucks coming, 16 tractor trailers coming, that could feed a lot of people. I was talking to the food bank the other day, and they said, well, we were just donated. We just got 5,000 cases of chicken fajita from the government. I said, I got 5,000 already in my freezer. So, so we were able to take their donations, and they get a lot of fresh fruit and vegetable donations. And then we took our protein donations and our frozen food, donations from US, and we made a really interesting food pack. It had bananas and oranges and apples and mangoes. The other day, we had limes. I'm like, whoa, we had limes. But we gave, fajita meat, potato wedges, vegetables, peanut butter. I mean, the pack really looks good. 30 pounds of food. Serve a family 3 to 4 days. And the whole thing, I keep moving it around the district. And the other thing that we recognize is that we chose sites based on the data that we have that are 85% free. So we know where the hunger resides. And so don't think I'm giving, I think I'm going up the River Oaks, down, up 10 Energy Corridor. I'm really focusing in those areas, 45 South. I keep saying that because I know you're from Texas, other people. The areas where where the need is the greatest.
Right.
And it's not like, don't worry, we're not going to University West, and we're not going up the River Oaks. We're really focusing where, and we're also focusing in neighborhoods where we know people do not have cars, so they can walk.
Right.
And part of the problem with a food desert, of course you live in a food desert if you don't have a car, so you can exit the desert and go where there's supermarket. Of course you do. So one of the things you try to do is bring the food to neighborhoods. So we where most of our sites are elementary schools where kids walk, where parents walk their kids to school. So we're going to have a brisk walk up. We also have some high schools, and then there's some high schools that we have that are on the edge of Houston proper, but so we get people out of other municipalities, Galena Park and Pasadena. I know it don't mean anything, it means something to you, but we're able to serve other suburban areas who've come over. So we do something out 45 South that's near Galena Park, Alvin, and places, so people can come. And again, that's working with the food bank so we can have a wider coverage.
Yeah. And I know one of the things you and I have spoken about before is that there's a very obvious need in very high free and reduced percentage schools and districts, but there's also a kind of less obvious need of the kind of the middle class that is living to paycheck and trying to decide what to do. And now maybe their family is out of jobs.
Here it is, my son's the chef in the hospitality industry. He's laid off. But luckily, we can weather this storm together, he and I can. But I always talked about, when I was in Detroit, I always talked about hunger at the end of the cul-de-sac, and people never understood what I meant. And I said, that's the working poor, the near poor, the soon to be poor, depending on what economic condition we're in. So there are those people out there that I'm addressing that need too as well. And there's a lot of them here in the city of Houston. And even some of the near suburbs, Spring. Oh, well, I'm sorry. I'm talking to Texas. I'm trying to talk to a broader audience, but you understand what I'm saying.
I understand.
Working class communities that depend upon a lot of service industry, even the oil now. Oil is laying off. And it's going to be, we're in a bad recession here in Houston, that we're going to need all the help that we can get. And I know that food makes it more palatable. I'm not saying feeding families are going to solve the problem, because I know they need other things, but it really helps if you're not worrying about how you're going to feed your kids, or you open up your cupboard and there's nothing on the shelf.
Yeah.
That as a parent who raised a single mom, that was one of the things I was always concerned about. Where our next meal coming from, and making sure we had our next meal. So that was primary, to feed your kids and feed your family. So that's what I've really been trying to do. And that's just always been my mantra of why I'm in the child nutrition. It's about kids, but at the end of the day, it's about families. I tell people all the time, particularly in these neighborhoods that are challenged, in these households that are challenged, you knock on the door, you got grandma, you got an auntie, they just let, and this might sound horrible, but this is the reality. Harris County just let 1,200 inmates out of jail. Where do you think these inmates are going? And what kind of households do you think they came out of? So now you done put another member, you done put somebody else into the household, another mouth to feed that has no income, you just keep putting all these stressful situations into these households. So if we can beat them, dang, that's the least we can do. Because look at all the other things they've got to deal with. They have no money for rent because you're working service jobs. Yep. They were working service jobs. They were working, like I said, my hairstylist. She has her shop. She owned her own shop. It's closed.
Right.
So what is she gonna do? So, or even the cleaners, my dry cleaners. Things that people, we take for granted. They say, oh, well, I just won't get my clothes cleaned. But yeah, but there was a paycheck behind that. I look at, and then the farmers, I'm really worried about what our farmers are going to do. And I was just talking to a friend, Chandra Warren. She has she raises rice. And she also has a farm on Oregon. They're talking about, what are these farmers going to do? There are some small farmers who had restaurant customers, who had, small producers, and they don't have that anymore. So what's going to happen to that food? So we're going to have a whole conversation about agriculture in this country, and what we're going to do with this excess product that we have. And I said, it came to bear, and it came to relevance to me when I saw we were packing mangoes in our food baskets. That means somebody didn't have a customer for mangoes.
Yep.
So, oh, I got a message at Millway, they're practicing social distance. Okay, I had to look at that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But I mean, it's really, I think this is what I wanted to do all my life. Just like when Harvey came, it's like, okay, how do we provide some relief? How do we support our families? Because until you support families, you can't support children. And our superintendent, she and I, we talked about it. I said, you know what, Dr. Latham, and she agreed. She said, Betti, you're right. So what we did is that we focused our efforts in our wraparound service offices. So wraparound services is an office where we do things beyond just education. So I had the tools, and I also had the professionals who could help us identify where these families are, who, like we have homeless children. How are we going to feed them? Well, we do have emergency meals, so we do have ready to serve meals. So when we sit down and we have these conversations every day at 4:30. and we talk about, okay, well, what's the next thing that we need to address? So it was homeless children.
Yeah.
Kids on special diets. So my dietitians had to get in. I mean, the relevance, what I really like about this in terms of what we can do is that we are now in child nutrition, not just HISD, but all over the country. People get to see what type of skills and services we have in our portfolio.
Exactly. Yeah.
The services and skills that all of a sudden we're not just little lunch ladies. We do special diets. We can, mass produce meals. We have transportation systems. We have storage. We're not just the little lunch ladies anymore. And they're pulling us to the table as equal partners. And oh, by the way, we're essential services. You look at, I was just thinking about and working with the food bank. The food bank had never said, no one ever said, here's a refrigerated truck, or here's 2 drivers, or here. I sat down the first week this all started. I sat down 5 warehousemen to help the food bank move product around. I sent 14 trucks at that time, 14 drivers, 37, 35 employees to the food bank. It was like a donation. And they, and we worked together well and understood what, and what they liked about it is that they said, your people know what to do. It's not like volunteers. White people, when they went into the warehouse, knew how to drive a high-low. When they got into a refrigerated truck, knew how to load a truck. And they were like, they didn't know we had those kind of skill sets within our ranks. And I think people are going to look again and find out when these kind of disasters happen, how do we use the food service department within school districts? No one, when I tell people I serve 225,000 meals a day, they just like, oh my God, I didn't know you. Yeah. So it does. So it's not just a little school lunch lady. And then when even people with school districts, when you think about, I think about Bertrand. Bertrand has in Minneapolis, he has a central kitchen. And I think he's utilizing his central kitchen. Just about all of us have a refrigerated truck here and there and everywhere, or some sort of truck for moving product around the district. I know in Detroit, I didn't have a refrigerated truck, but I had 2-3 trucks and a central kitchen just for handling emergencies and moving things around, catering. So, I think when the conversation has to be had of when this debriefing happens, and you must ensure that your food service people are at the table, simply because of all the federal programs we have. And I don't care whether you're rich or poor district, you still participate in some sort of way in these government programs, and you have something to provide. You have something to say. I have a friend up in Michigan now, Dan Gorman. He's in, he's in Traverse City, small school district, but he asked some questions about, how are we going to protect our people? What are we going to do as time goes on? His is smaller, but he and I have the same concerns.
Yeah.
He's trying to address the needs of his community. His numbers aren't as massive as mine, but when you live in a tourist community, those are nothing but service employees. And that's not happening. So he's got the same concerns, smaller, but we may have to work it or tweak it a little bit to make it fit his circumstances, but it's the same type of concern. So I'm on a call this afternoon with the IFMA, and Larry Okerfeld, I think his name, he wants to talk to us because people are realizing, wait a minute, it's the little school lunch ladies and men out here who are really, pulling our weight. We're pulling our weight. And that's the same thing that happens inside all these hospitals. You still got people in the cafeteria feeding people. I praise doctors and lawyers and nurses and all these other, but don't forget those service employees who are really getting close to the environment. They're out there working in the environment. They have to protect themselves. But guess what? They know how. They've worn gloves and hair wraps and lab coats and all sorts of stuff doing the preparation of meals in normal times. So I don't know. I just, it's a good time for this country to sit down and really reevaluate how we're feeding kids. What is the role of school meals and its relationship to the total society?
Yeah. Well, Betti, as always,
I'm sorry, I could go on forever.
Oh, I know you're very busy, so I appreciate you all the time you gave today. Thank you again for everything that you do to feed the kids. I cannot believe that I saw you 2 months ago, and now we're speaking over video chat in our homes.
So, anything we can do to help, or anything we can help to get the word out, I really want to thank Food Management, because this helps. This really helps, and for you to take the time to interview us and let people know we're here, we're qualified, we want to help, form a relationship. The other one I'm looking at now is, how do I get manufacturers and get farmers and telling them, let's talk about the food banks. These guys gonna make those fields. That food does not need to rot in the field.
Right.
We need to get it to the food bank. We need to talk about pantries. The other people who are forgotten, and I just have to briefly say this too, the reason I decided to feed families were senior citizens.
Yeah.
In most poor income challenged households, there's an extended family in there. There's grandma and auntie, because they can't afford to send her to a nursing home, so there's just so the complexity. So that was another reason I said, I gotta feed. I just can't feed a kid and say my work is done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have the biggest heart out there, Betti. Appreciate all the work that you're doing.
Thank you, ma'am. All right.
Stay safe.
All right. Bye.